It's a beautiful day, and I want to hold your hand because we've got 16 questions on the Beatles from listener Greg Hernandez. This is Trivia with Buds. What it be? And welcome to another episode of the Trivia with Buds podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Buds. Thanks for checking out the show. Just got back from a big trip to Chicago. Had a great time there on Friday and Saturday and Sunday doing some trivia shows, doing some bingo shows, and visiting my family. And by visiting my family, I mean my mom gave me a giant list of stuff she needed done around her house. One of those things was getting her a new computer. Had ordered her a Google Acer Chromebook, had it shipped to the house, set it all up, and she sat down. She goes, "Ooh, I don't like how the keyboard's connected to the screen." So that was her big issue with that. And I said, "Mom, why don't you like it?" She goes, "I just like when it's disconnected. We're going to return this." So we returned it, and I set up her old computer. And she's all set now on the south side of Chicago. She uses a computer for two things. One of those things is to enter a contest to win me duffel bags and stuff like that. It's like online contests. Like I feel like she's like, "Hey, I want another duffel bag. I'm sending it to you." So then I have to carry around like some pharmaceutical company's duffel bag, which is very nice. And then the other thing she uses it for is to comment on pictures that I post on Facebook with some sort of comment like "nice picture," and then she puts "mom" after it. I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, I know it's you. Your name is in bold letters right next to it, as well as a shadow person because you don't know how to upload a picture to Facebook." So it's just like a unknown person and your name stamped. I'm pretty sure that's you. But it was a fun trip. We had a great time. She lives in this 55 and older community, and they have like a great couple of lakes to walk around and swings to sit on. I sat on a swing and watched a spider make a web like Charlotte's Web, and I was like, "Oh, this is what older people do around here," and I'm okay with it. I dig it. But the shows were great too. We had about 80 people, 75, 80 people, completely full house at Hackney's in Palos Park, Illinois for Disney Marvel Star Wars. It was very cool, and I'm super happy with how that turned out. We'll be back there again in December. I'm going back in December to visit the family with my whole family. I just went by myself this time. So we'll be bringing my wife and the kids and seeing everybody, and we'll be there for like 7 or 8 days. So it'll be very cool. And I'll be making sure to post those show dates as soon as I know them, but we'll probably do another show at Hackney's on like a theme, and then we'll do at least one show at 350 Brewing. 350 Brewing is awesome, by the way. If you live anywhere near Tinley Park, Illinois, go to this brewery as soon as you can. Amazing beers. The names of the beers are great. They have beers like Rebel Scum, The Mouth of the South, and Chain Wallet. Those are three I remember off the top of my head that I had, and they're very good. And they have great food, amazing shrimp tacos and things like that. And the people there, the workers and people that hang out there is very cool. If you like wrestling, they have different wrestling on different TVs simultaneously. So that was cool. They had Freaks and Geeks on a third TV. Just a very cool like punk throwback nostalgia kind of a place. So 350 Brewing, check that out. Very, very cool place. But now I'm back home, and we're cruising right into the fall here. Fall has officially begun, I feel like. Although I think it's September something. Isn't that when autumn is the September 21st? I don't know. I should know things like that, but I don't. I'm drinking a nice Arnold Palmer iced tea lemonade right here, and we're going to jump into some questions about the Beatles. This is from my friend Greg Hernandez. He listens to the show, and he actually sent me a message. He said, "Hey, can you start recording all the episodes you do solo in mono instead of stereo?" And I don't even really know what that means. I kind of do, but I have this thing called the Zoom H6 that I record everything with. And I usually just plug in this mic to the top of it that it came with, and because it's easier than setting up all my other mics and stuff. And I just talk into it. But that is a stereo type recording, and he said that it stinks for people that listen with like one headphone in, I think is what I read online. So I will start recording in mono, which I think I'm recording in now. So if you are an audio aficionado like Greg, hopefully you will appreciate this change. And if this doesn't fix it, let me know. But I'm recording into one single microphone rather than the connection that's has two little microphones on top of it for the top of the Zoom H6. So Greg said, hey, I'm a big Beatles fan. Let me write you some Beatles questions. And I said, let's do it. And he said today or yesterday when he sent them to me is Paul McCartney's world tour beginning. So I thought that was kind of cool. And the tickets are hundreds of dollars if you're trying to go. But Greg sent me this email. He said, use as little of the questions and background info as you need. Hit me up with any follow-up questions you might have. And we're going to read them all. We got 16 from Greg. A little background on Greg. He lives in Minneapolis. He's been a fan of the Beatles from Liverpool since he was little. And they're the one band he just can't get bored with. There's so many styles, so many innovations, so many musical masteries. And his pet peeve is hipsters who pretend to like Wings but not the Beatles. Get over yourselves. So there you go, a message from Greg. We're going to jump into these 16 questions on the Beatles right about now. Here we go. All right, here we go. 16 questions on the Beatles. Most of these are multiple choice. Some are true, false. Let's see how many of these you can get right. Question number 1, which Beatles song references the most other Beatles songs, including the line, "The Walrus was Paul"? Question 1, which Beatles song references the most other Beatles songs, including the line, "The Walrus was Paul"? Was it Glass Onion, Penny Lane, Revolution Number 9, or Revolution 1? Glass Onion, Penny Lane, Revolution 9, or Revolution 1? Question number 2, in the song Here, There, and Everywhere, how many times is the title sung in its entirety? Is it once, twice, 3 times, or 4 times? Question number 2, in the song Here, There, and Everywhere, how many times is the title sung in its entirety? Once, twice, 3 times, or 4 times? Question number 3, true or false, Stella McCartney is related to Paul McCartney. Is that true or false? True or false, Stella McCartney related to Paul McCartney? Question number 4, in 1980, Paul McCartney was busted for bringing marijuana into Japan. Paul stated that it was only for personal use. About how much marijuana did authorities find in his luggage? Was it 10 joints, 10 pot-laced brownies, just over 2 ounces, or almost half a pound? Was it a little bit or a whole bunch more? In 1980, Paul McCartney busted for pot in Japan. How much did he have in his luggage? 10 joints, 10 pot-laced brownies, just over 2 ounces, or almost half a pound? Question number 5, Joe Walsh of the Eagles, Burton Cummings from the Guess Who, and Todd Rundgren were all traveling members of what post-Beatles band? Was that Ringo's All-Star Band, John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band, Paul McCartney and Wings, or George Harrison's touring group? Joe Walsh from the Eagles, Burton Cummings from the Guess Who, and Todd Rundgren were all traveling members of what post-Beatles band? Ringo's All-Star Band, John Lennon and the Plastic Ono Band, Paul McCartney and Wings, or George Harrison's touring group? Question number 6, where did Ringo Starr, then known as Richard Starkey, start playing percussion? Was it at school, in a hospital, at church, or in the family kitchen? Number 6, where did Ringo Starr, then known as Richard Starkey, start playing percussion? At school, in hospital, while he was in the hospital, at a church, or in the family kitchen? Question number 7, what is the only song released during the Beatles' career attributed to all 4 members, Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, and Starkey? What is the only song released during the Beatles' career attributed to all 4 members, Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, Starkey? Is it Helter Skelter off the White Album, Babies in Black from Beatles for Sale, Flying from the Magical Mystery Tour soundtrack, or Hey Jude from Let It Be? Question number 8, what is the name of the upcoming Paul McCartney World Tour, which he began on September 17th in Quebec City? Is it called One on One, Freshen Up, On the Run, or Big Macca Attack? Number 8, what's the name of the upcoming Paul McCartney World Tour? Is it One on One, Freshen Up, On the Run, or Big Macca Attack? Number 9, what was the nickname for John Lennon's boyhood home? Is it Penny Lane, Mendips, Strawberry Fields, or Abbey Road? Number 9, what was the nickname for John Lennon's boyhood home? Penny Lane, Mendips, Strawberry Fields, or Abbey Road? Got about 7 questions left. More on number 10. Which Beatle, along with his wife, started Meatless Mondays to promote the vegetarian lifestyle? Was it John, Paul, George, or Ringo? Which Beatle started Meatless Mondays to promote the vegetarian lifestyle? John, Paul, George, or Ringo? Question number 11. George Harrison's son, Donnie, D-H-A-N-I, has his own band, which sounds quite a bit like his old man. What's the name of that band? Is it the Ruddles? Then the number 2? It's like the N-E-W-N-O and the number 2. So the Ruddles, the number 2, the Old Brown Shoes, or the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Number 12, speaking of Beatle heirs, which Beatle offspring has occasionally played bass guitar in the New York-based indie group Cibo Matto? Is that Sean Lennon, Julian Lennon, Donnie Harrison, or Zach Starkey? Beatle heirs, which one played bass guitar in the New York-based indie group Cibo Matto? Sean Lennon, Julian Lennon, Donnie Harrison, or Zach Starkey? Question number 13. Which Beatle recorded experimental music in a duo known as the Fireman? That John, Paul, George, or Ringo? Which Beatle recorded experimental music in a duo known as the Fireman? John, Paul, George, or Ringo? Question number 14. Which of Paul's albums was panned by critics but later hailed as a futuristic milestone in early British electronica? Was it New, McCartney 1, McCartney 2, or Band on the Run? Number 14, which of Paul's albums was panned by critics but later hailed as futuristic milestone of the early British electronica? New, McCartney 1, McCartney 2, or Band on the Run? Number 15, who was the only living person mentioned in a Beatles song by first and last name? Yoko Ono, Peter Brown, Elvis Presley, or Mary McCartney? Number 15, who is the only living person mentioned in a Beatles song by first and last name? Yoko Ono, Peter Brown, Elvis Presley, Mary McCartney. And number 16, which Beatles survived being stabbed during a home invasion by a crazed fan? Was it John, Paul, George, or Ringo? Number 16, which Beatles survived being stabbed during a home invasion by a crazed fan? John, Paul, George, or Ringo? Thanks so much for those questions, Greg. Those are very tough. If you are a Beatles fan, hopefully you knew some of those. I am not a huge Beatles fan, so I would have a hard time even with the multiple choice, but Greg must know his stuff. He credits these questions, by the way, to @thedez, D-E-Z, on, I'm guessing, Twitter or Instagram, so you can thank the Dez if you had a good time with these questions. We're going to go over the answers in just a second. All right, here we go. We're back with the answers to the Beatles questions submitted by Greg Hernandez. Here we go. Question number 1. Which Beatles song references the most other Beatles songs, including the line "The Walrus Was Paul"? We had Glass Onion, Penny Lane, Revolution Number 9, or Revolution 1. The answer was Glass Onion. Glass Onion. Question 2. In the song "Here, There, and Everywhere," how many times is the title sung in its entirety? It is only sung once. Once. Question 3, true or false? Stella McCartney is related to Paul. That is true. Stella is Paul's daughter. That is his daughter. Question 4, in 1980, Paul McCartney busted for marijuana in Japan. How much did they have in his luggage? 10 joints, 10 pot lace brownies, just over 2 ounces, almost half a pound. It was almost half a pound. And Greg put, for personal use, weed must have been pretty weak back then, LOL. Number 5, Joe Walsh of the Eagles, Burton Cummings from the Guess Who, and Todd Rundgren were all traveling members of what post-Beatles band? We had Ringo's All-Star Band is the answer there. Ringo's All-Star Band. Number 6, where did Ringo Starr, known as Richard Starkey, start playing percussion? He started playing in a hospital. In a hospital. Question number 7, what is the only song released during the Beatles' career attributed to all 4 members? That Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, and Starkey. And we had Helter Skelter off the White Album, Babies in Black from Beatles for Sale, Flying Magical Mystery Tour soundtrack, and Hey Dude, Let It Be. It was Flying from the Magical Mystery Tour soundtrack. Number 8, what is the name of the upcoming Paul McCartney World Tour, which began on September 17th in Quebec City? It's called Freshen Up. Freshen Up. One on One was another choice. That was a previous tour. And On the Run was from 2011 to 2012. Big Macca Attack was made up for the question, though one of Paul's nicknames is Mecca. Thanks. That's a good little tidbit from Greg. Number 9, what was the nickname for John Lennon's boyhood home? Penny Lane, Mendips, Strawberry Fields, or Abbey Road? It was Mendips. Mendips was the nickname of the home on 251 Menlove Avenue, where John's Aunt Mimi almost single-handedly raised John. Strawberry Fields was a real place not far from there. Penny Lane was a street in Liverpool made famous by the song of the same name, primarily written by Paul. Number 10, which Beatle, along with his wife, started Meatless Mondays to promote the vegetarian lifestyle? It was Paul McCartney. A lot of Paul McCartney questions in here, and he's probably... I don't know. He's probably the most modern face of the Beatles for people talking about him because he's still doing so much stuff. Number 11, George Harrison's son, Danny, Dhani, has his own band, which sounds quite a bit like his old man. What's the name of the band? It is the number 2, the new number 2. So it's THENEWNO, and then the numeral 2. The Ruddles were a parody band. Old Brown Shoe was a song by George Harrison, and Let It Be, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, are an alternative rock band fronted by Karen O. Number 12, speaking of Beatle heirs, which Beatle offspring has occasionally played bass guitar in the New York-based indie group Cibo Matto? That is Sean Lennon. They all play pretty proficiently, and Greg says they should form a super group. Number 13, which Beatle recorded experimental music in a duo known as the Firemen? That was Paul McCartney again. Number 14, which of Paul's albums was panned by critics but later hailed as futuristic milestones of the early British electronica? That was McCartney number 2, McCartney 2. It says, check out the crazy sequenced stylings of Temporary Secretary, if you like that album. Number 15, who is the only living person mentioned in a Beatles song by first and last name? The answer was Peter Brown. Peter Brown was Beatles manager Brian Epstein's assistant and rose up the ranks after Epstein's death. He's mentioned by name in the Ballad of John and Yoko, who is not mentioned by full name. Brown later went on to write The Love You Make, a tell-all book about his association with the Beatles. Paul has stated the Mother Mary in the song Let It Be is his own mother, but again, no last name is used there. Real persons such as Sir Walter Raleigh and Edgar Allan Poe appeared in other Beatles songs, but they were long dead by the time the Beatles got around to singing about them. Interesting fact. Number 16, which Beatles survived being stabbed during a home invasion by a crazed fan? John, Paul, George, or Ringo? It was George Harrison. And those are your 16 questions from Greg Hernandez. Greg, thanks so much for submitting those. That was very kind of you. Thanks for the notes about the podcast. And again, guys, if you want to know a little bit about Greg, he hit me up on Twitter, and you can follow him. Let me get his Twitter handle. But again, he lives in Minneapolis, huge fan of the Beatles, and all-around good guy, Greg Hernandez. His handle is, the Dez. Credit is the Dez. So that makes more sense because his last name is Hernandez. So these are credited to him, Greg Hernandez. Nice job, Greg. Appreciate it, and follow him, the Dez, THEDEZ, wherever you can. That is all for today's episode, guys. If you like this show, if you like daily trivia, if you like music, movies, comic books, video games, wrestling, anything you can think of, we've done it on the show. Subscribe for new episodes every single day. And go back and check out over 250 episodes with some fun titles about what the episode's about. We have some great interviews, some great guests, some great battles, and some great questions over the last 2 years of the show. So definitely go back and check them out if you're new. And if you want to support the show in any way, go to patreon.com/trivia-with-buds. We're about halfway through September, so we're getting close to October, and we'll be mailing out a lot of spooky stuff for the Patreon rewards at the beginning of October. Thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for telling a friend, and we'll see you tomorrow for more Trivia with Buds. Cheers.